am Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and sorry about the little blip. You know what? Sometimes you just got to deal with electronics the way that they just do their thing. So I'm just really happy to be here today because we have an amazing guest, somebody that I met a while ago now, and I am so excited to have her here today. She's helping change the world by helping children, and being a Hay House author. Oh, I was like, oh my gosh, I got a celebrity in the house. I'm so excited. So let's bring on Dr. Roxanne Daleo. Welcome to the show.
Hello, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you for the honor of joining you today.
We are excited to have you. As I mentioned to you before we started, that my first question is always to tell a bit about yourself. And then also, like, how did you get into what you're doing? Because that's why we're here today.
Okay. All right. So how did I get into this business? Well, when I was little, I had anxiety myself. I didn't know it. I struggled to learn how to read. And I took an IQ test when I was about 6 years old, which revealed that I was mentally retarded. And my mother said, oh, no. My daughter is not mentally retarded. Took me to the top specialist in New York City. And after all these exams, indeed, he discovered I had dyslexia and was dealing with test anxiety. And I didn't realize that. But way later in my life, I studied at the education master's program about IQ testing and what it was. And then I began to understand more and more about the mind-body connection and how it is that our emotions do affect not only our physiology, but our thinking brain and our ability to comprehend and really bring out our best potential. So that got me very sensitive to children who had anxiety of any kind. Very sensitive. And so my first job as a grad was in a general pediatric unit, Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center. And there I wondered, how can I reach these children who were in pain and afraid and not make them more afraid with a new person, a stranger coming in? Even though I was considered to be a non-threatening entity, I was in charge of creative arts. So on the weekend, when I'd recharge my battery with my friends, I would take slides and I would bring those slides of nature and our hikes and things that we did over the weekend into the children in these tiny isolation rooms and help them escape the confines of the hospital and use their imagination to take a journey to a beautiful, magical place. And that really was the way I began writing guided imagery relaxation for children and researching what I knew intuitively was healing and helpful, which is the sound of your voice, the cadence, the rhythm, the music, a story to guide them through an imaginary place that is peaceful and beautiful to them. So at any point, during my experience, I deepened my understanding as the research became more available. And really, that's a good intro to the snippet that you have of the excerpt, The Way of the Bear, which is one of many of the programs I've written, but there are 4 that really relate to the seasons of the year. Spring, summer, fall, and winter. And this one is the winter. Become like a bear. Go to your cave. Yeah.
I love that. Let's play that.
Okay.
Children of all ages, gather in this circle round. The campfire is burning. Come sit with me on the ground. I'll tell you a story of a way from long ago, when people shared their life and journey with drum, dance, and song. A way they believed was sacred to live their whole life long in harmony with all relations that walk, crawl, swim, or fly. You see, to these people, everything has a purpose. Everything is alive.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. So tell us a little more about how this actually helps. Because I mean, I know intuitively, but what are some results that you've seen? I mean, is there less anxiety?
Actually, it's quite physiologic in response. So after I worked with the children in a general pediatric unit, I was mentored by a child psychologist who said, Roxy, you should go on and get your doctorate. You are intuitive. You can read these children's energy. You understand what they need without any verbal explanation. You're using the arts to, a lot of time I would interpret the children's artwork because I studied Jung and the symbols of healing, which are embedded and utilized throughout my relaxation programs. But as I got to graduate school, I studied two things. One, what made people heal, and it brought me to researching really across cultures and traditions around the world. What was the common denominator that helped people heal? And how could I embed that into the work that I was doing? And what I discovered that was the common denominator is that all of those cultures that had a appreciation for the sacred and divine and used the breath, the prana, the life force, as a mechanism to ground and to focus inwardly was the key to unlocking healing for children. And no matter what age, I would appropriate the program according to their developmental level. So preschoolers, I speak to them in their language, and I use a lot of concrete ideas and bring it down to an elementary level. So animals and how animals behave was another, line in to help children follow what happens when they become calmer and pretend. And when you use the imagination, what's happened after I got picked up by the Mind Body Clinic at the Harvard Medical School as a research assistant was that Dr. Herbert Benson, who wrote the book, The Relaxation Response, studied Tibetan monks and what happened to them when they were meditating. And what he discovered was that not only did it lower your overall metabolic rate, your heart rate, your respiration, your immune system is boosted by the ability to interrupt the autonomic nervous system. And instead of just taking the ride and getting nervous and more nervous, if you learned how to turn the volume down on the autonomic nervous system, you could regulate your breathing and self-regulate the levers, the psychological levers that really are at the base of each and every one of us in terms of our stress level. So physically, I would witness blood changing and the immune assays of children improving after they'd have a session with me. This was really remarkable because I didn't go in sharing of guided imagery with them thinking I was going to affect their physiology. But in fact, that's exactly what happens when you really do deeply get into not only your own imagination, but your ability to use your breath to regulate your own inner sanctuary.
That is so beautiful. As you were speaking, I was thinking about how this could also, what you do and like share with the world, is good for adults. And also, like, this could be a bonding moment for kids with their parents.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that up, because, Leanne, that's exactly why I had parents hovering at the doorway while I was working with some of the kids with the recordings. And they were like, "Oh my God, I love that so much. Can I take one of those home?" And I'm like, "Oh, of course, of course. You know, this is good for kids of all ages." And that's exactly how it got to be so popular in terms of receptivity to this very unassuming, powerful technique, mind-body technique of helping kids to really calm themselves down without having it become more arduous and like a complicated task. I really translated it into a child's language. I used the cadence of my voice, the rhythm, the rhyme, everything very deliberately delivered in order to lull the patient into a state of rest. And of course, as I was studying, I was just so interested in hypnosis and altered states, and how do you create that without making it be frightening? Can you take a person through an altered state with their eyes open, not their eyes closed? And what is the difference? And how do you use music to change the rhythm of the heartbeat and the rhythm of the mother, so that that translation of anxiety gets transmuted as the work is being conducted? This is a very, I would say, more revealed work of research these days. When I was studying, it was called psychoneuroimmunology. And I'll break it apart. It's the psyche and our thoughts and emotions that release a cascade of neurochemicals that either inhibit healing or promote the immune response. And that's why it is more than just a delightful recess, if you will. It's actually powerful medicine to work with children in a mind-body-spirit complex, this way where you're really appreciating how the body works, how the rhythm can be improved. And then teaching kids, you know what? You have agency. There is a body sovereignty and an intelligence that's there. And when you tap into it, you can help to heal yourself. This is very important.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because most adults aren't even aware of that. I was thinking about when I was in school and the things that I learned, and I was never taught really important things like how to handle my emotions, how to deal with negative things. There's none of that, but you know what? I could do calculus. Which has been so helpful.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I mean, thank God I had really very beautiful parents, and their loving attention and real understanding of what kids need as they grow, which was intuitive for them both. But my mother in particular would do something called loving time every day after school. There were three of us, three girls. She would take us one by one and sit us on the sofa with her while she was listening to her beautiful operas, Aida, Madame Butterfly, whatever it was. And she would brush my hair or rub my back. No words were necessary, just the listening together in this peaceful, beautiful environment. And being an artist herself, of course, our home was exquisite. The sense of aesthetics was very much around us. So fresh flowers and colors that were beautifully organized and brought harmony to the home. So sitting with her in this beautiful, quiet, gentle space once a day began to give me such a appreciation for my sacred self. And that sacred self can never be disturbed. There is a peace there, even though we may go much of our waking life out of touch with it. When we calm down and slow down, it's always there, always available.
And for those that are watching that aren't really familiar with sacred self, how would you, I mean, you sort of described that, but could you go into more depth, please?
Yeah, of course. Well, as I said, in my graduate work of studying what makes people heal around the world, this idea that whether it's the shaman, the high priest, or whoever was the head of the tribe, was the figurehead for the sacred and divine. And that in communicating with the members, all he did, or all she did, was to put you in touch with your own divinity, your own sacred space. That, as my dad would say, you see that ocean out there, Roxy? Well, God is a lot like that ocean. You take a little teaspoon of that and you put it inside yourself. You're made of God stuff. That's who you are, because he created all of us and everything on earth. And that was the beginning of my understanding of how I connected with the creator and source energy. And that, in a way, is what a lot of parents used to come to me to ask for help about when they were having kids who experienced challenging physical diseases, and many of whom I would say were terminally ill. When I studied at Boston Children's Hospital, I had only the children who underwent bone marrow transplants, and there was only a 60% chance of survival. So many of those kids did not make it. But I learned a lot about how to talk to children about the life cycles and the cycles of the seasons and what happens after we leave this form and perhaps go into another. So I leaned a lot on the Native American traditions and talking about life and death and cycles of life, using nature as my foundation of conversation with children, and also with parents who needed help as well, to explain things to kids.
And it's an easy way because it's so visual. You're using concepts that they're already familiar with and being able to explain something in a way that they'll be able to understand. I remember, and I just remember I had an older brother, and he was only a half brother by blood, but he was my full brother because my dad adopted him. And I was probably 3 years old when I found out my brother wasn't really my brother, like my whole brother. I was so horrified. It scarred me because they were trying to explain to me that he was really my brother, but all I heard was he's not. So whenever you can explain anything that is difficult to understand to a child without scaring them, I'm always extremely appreciative of that. But anyway, we do need to go to a commercial break. So when we come back, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this idea of the seasons and how we can use that to help kids. We'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, I'm Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and today's amazing guest is Dr. Roxanne Daleo. Welcome back to the show. Glad to have you here.
Good to be here.
So during the commercial break, I was thinking a lot about this idea of nature and like the 4 seasons. And with anything, I even had a friend once that used to kind of plan her life around the moon cycles, and and it made a difference, because if you think about it, we're not always in a growing state. We're not always, so I would love to understand a little bit more about how you use those concepts in order to help children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, okay, let's use 2 seasons in particular. One is the summertime, when kids are free to go and play on the beach. I was challenged to figure out how to help kids reframe stressful situations, try to get out of, where their mind was stuck on something. And I came up with this idea of pearling. And you take a seashell and a little grain of sand, and you pretend that this grain of sand is an irritation or a worry. And like an oyster, you can put it in your shell and close it in and turn it and grind it until it comes out to be a pearl of wisdom. So you turn your irritation and turn it and grind it until it becomes a jewel, some kind of wisdom, something to learn from. So this is how I take the tangible, everyday, natural setting and help kids to use it as leverage to learn how to help themselves to calm down. In the fall, I would use the leaves that were gently falling onto a stream and use that as a letting go metaphor. And then we would come inside, and they would have a paper that they could draw a leaf, and inside the leaf they could either write or draw a picture of something that they were afraid of or worried about, and then crumple up the paper, throw it away. So again, a very tangible, we call these symbolic gestures in the field of psychology, and especially hypnotherapy. And so when you're giving kids suggestions of how to fortify themselves and tap into their resourcefulness, you're actually giving them a mechanism to anchor into their proficiency, not their weakness. And that is really the foundation of a lot of the work that I do with kids, is to really not only find their resources, but give them ways to become resourceful, because becoming resourceful is powerful and empowering, not just giving them, something, but actually turning it into a way of being.
I really like that, because if you empower them to start thinking a little bit more for themselves, because you're not always going to be there. The parent isn't always going to be there.
Exactly.
Whoever isn't. So what are they going to do then?
Exactly. So, taking it one step further, when you've demonstrated to a parent how you could stop by, let's say you're on a hike with your kid, and you can actually have a teaching learning moment because it's in the fall and the leaves are changing color and landing in front of you. That's another way that you can actually reinforce the teachings. But I would say, just generally speaking, when you step into the natural world with your child, there is a biofield that is alive, and that in and of itself is a stress reducer. So the big question is, how do you keep your kids close when social media is so imperative about taking them and their attention away?
Mm-hmm.
So some of the ways that I encourage parents to really be with the kids is to shut off the cell phone, go shoulder to shoulder, take a hike. It doesn't have to take a long time, but let the trail and the not knowing of what's ahead be a way to keep the attachment bond with your child fortified and let them use you and look to you for that sense of security so that they can springboard forward when you're not there. But the mistake that a lot of parents make is that they think the kid is older and doesn't need me and they're more interested in their friends. But really, in order for a kid to be more independent, they need to feel security and safety first and foremost.
I think that is a very important distinction that needs to be made because, I used to work in addiction recovery, and I used to do a lot of things with the clients that they just despised, but it was my job and I was showing them love, and it just was what it was. And one of them was taking away their cell phones. I mean, it wasn't me personally, but they weren't allowed to have their cell phones.
Right.
But, and that was part of the process of them healing. So I fully understand that. But the thing that always, and this is for parents, the thing that I always think about is how many of those clients came back to me, the ones that couldn't stand me and thanked me, even towards the end of their stay, can I take you home with me? Because they realized that tough love was still love, and it wasn't even tough. But to them it was, because it was like they couldn't zone out, they couldn't leave their thoughts, feelings, and emotions. But really, if you're going to live your life, you can't leave those things. You don't have to necessarily camp in them, in the negativity, but to avoid them is not healthy either. So I love what you're doing. Yeah.
I think it is a challenge to, try to get away from the devices. But actually, one of the things that I like to encourage parents to understand is that you yourself have stories to tell. Mm-hmm. And when you replace the device with something that no one else can give your child but you, it's your story. What did you do when you were stressed? Maybe it was to run fast or to build something with hammer and nails. Maybe you used clay or paints. Whatever mm-hmm. it was, that story is a very important piece of you that you can impart. And it's not necessary to bring in specialists or anyone else. You have a very special story that you need to pass on to your children, and not to forget the importance and value that has.
It really does, because they know you, they love you, they trust you. So I've put up your website down below. I know that you have a gift there for everyone, but also I want you to explain what else people can find there and all the different things that you have.
Yes, absolutely. So if anyone wants any further guidance in some of these techniques and the things that we're sharing, please read the blog. And also I have courses that are, many of which are free, to guide you through, as I'm doing today, using the guided imagery techniques and easy ways to implement relaxation in your home without any stress, and actually helping you to relax as well.
I think that is very important. I wish that this was, I know that you're helping all sorts of children, and especially ones that are sick, which I can't even imagine having a child that was ill. But I wish this was something that was more in schools, and I guess what I'm getting at is, for the parents out there, since they're not teaching that in school, guess who that falls on?
Right. And what I hope that I can do today is to bring it to you in a way where it's very doable. It's not a chore. It's actually something that you can weave into your everyday life to have it become more natural. And here's another quick technique that I learned from some of the cultures that I have been studying, put a little basket in your at your front door with a ribbon on it that says "Leave your worries in the basket." And as the kids come home, just have them be mindful of what they were worried about and imagine taking that and putting it into the basket before coming into the house, and making sure that your welcome back to your kids is very pronounced. Get off your computer, be ready to greet them. Perhaps you can put a beautiful scent in the air, maybe hot cider or hot chocolate, something that really accentuates this is home, this is safe, you're here, and I'm here, and love is in the air.
Oh, it really speaks to my heart what you're saying, because I grew up in a very chaotic household where there was a lot of drama and trauma. And I mean, that's not unusual, but
No.
it's really not.
It's not.
But there was a point in time when my mom, she had cancer, so she didn't work. So it was so wonderful knowing that she was there, knowing that if anything happened, I could go to my mom and she would be there. And, she didn't do all the other things to help, make me feel safe, but that stuck with me in the most wonderful way because I knew she was there. I felt important to her.
I can't underscore that enough. And Julianne, you're very fortunate that you had forged that relationship with your mom. And what I'm saying is that it may seem obvious, but it's so missed in today's world, and family life is not the way it used to be. It's too transient. Moms are stressed. They're flying here and there by the seat of their pants most of the time. They don't think about, the effect of driving through a drive-through for takeout food as the opposite of grounding your kid and welcoming them consciously back. Or I tell a lot of moms, look, if you are going to pick up all three of the kids and they're all in the car, why don't you just park the car on the side of a beautiful refuge or a riverway and just make that 5 minutes, take your breath, have your snack in the car. We're all together. You can either get out if it's warm weather, or if it's too cold, stay in the car. And just consciously bring your family together with a moment of all is well. That's what kids need today.
Exactly. And just being there with them, this whole idea of and not even necessarily turning off your phone, but not being so connected to that. I interviewed somebody recently and she was talking about how she had this baby and she was on her phone almost all the time. And she finally realized, I'm missing this. The baby didn't necessarily know per se, but, I'm sure the baby could feel it. And also she was missing these precious moments for social media. I'm so proud of her for recognizing that and being able to make that change, because most of us don't. It's like I sit there and think I just got married less than a year ago. And I was very conscious of being present for that because I didn't want to miss it. I didn't want to miss it, like worrying about this or that or what was going on with whatever. I just wanted to be in the moment and enjoy that experience. And if we could do that more often, that would lower stress too.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful story. And I want to say, even in utero, children, the infant can feel the vibration of the mother. Mm-hmm. There are many studies that report the heartbeat and the rate of the heartbeat of the mother can either calm the in utero infant, or it can excite and stress the infant. So whether you think you're kind of half paying attention or not, what I'm saying is it's all vibration. And children, as young as infants, do pick up our vibrational information. And that is something that is built on intent. When you have an intention to send love, to generate the energy of love and peace and quiet, all is well, that moment of intention is a very powerful tool to communicate, to help your kids really feel calmer.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I love about what you do is that it feels to me like science is finally starting to catch up with what we've intuitively known. And so there's like a little more so-called proof, which honestly, to me, it doesn't really matter like about the proof. It works.
Well, what grandmothers have always done for years, to sing a lullaby. I recently wrote a blog post, which is on my website. It's called "What Does Blowing Out a Candle, Whistling have to do with calming your child?" Well, it's the exhalation that turns the switch down on the autonomic nervous system. It's the medulla oblongata, this part of the brain that is the switch that when you exhale, a deep exhale, like blowing out a candle, blowing bubbles, whistling, these are very quick, easy fixes for parents to grab onto when their youngster is a little bit erratic and having a hard time calming down. And that's how I try to make it very accessible and easy to master and apply immediately to your everyday life.
I love that. We do need to go to one more commercial break, so we're going to be back in just a minute. But when we return, we're going to continue this conversation about giving these tools to kids, because what you just said, it's like, instead of trying to take away the agitation, or why not teach them how to handle it and change it? So we'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us now, I'm Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and today's amazing guest is Dr. Roxanne Daleo. Welcome back. So glad to have you here. So during the commercial break, I was thinking about this idea of, teach a man to fish versus handing the fish over. And I think a lot of us, especially parents, this was definitely in my experiences, I just want to take this away. I don't want you to have to feel this, But ultimately, it's a disservice anyway, because they're going to have to deal with these thoughts, feelings, and emotions at some point in their life, whether or not they're sick. This is something that it's life. So I'd love for you to speak into that a little bit more. Do you see that as a common thing?
Well, it's all in the way you present the, let's say, challenge. And I'm very careful about vocabulary. And whenever I hear parents use the word problem, I always try to give them a few other words that will help, because you have key search engine words that are constantly being used to hook kids onto ideas that will then grow from that word. And that's why I like teaching parents also to be mindful of the way they speak to their children and to speak into proactive, pro-social, positive vocabulary that enrolls the child toward resourceful states. So, for example, I often have children think about what it is that's, upsetting to them. And instead of focusing on the thing that's upsetting, I ask them to try to reframe what you're thinking about in a way where it's actually guiding you and helping you to learn something new about yourself. Why is it that it's triggering anger? What is it? And you can't do that without really inoculating kids at an early age. And this is my favorite preschool activity. It's called Time In, Not Time Out. And to help them to access their inner life. Now, there is the world around us, the environment, and the noise of the streets and anything outside the home. There is the noise and the environment and the ambience of the home itself. And then there's inside of you. And how do you get to explain to children how to distinguish those three layers? I use the bell sound. Use the bell sound as a very easy way to say to kids, okay, listen to the sound of the bell. I want you to imagine you can have your brain jump out the window and follow the sounds outside the room. Okay. So they listen to the sound of the bell. And when you can't hear it anymore, raise your hand. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to ring the bell again. Now I want you to follow the sounds inside the room. Forget about the sounds outside. They're out there, but I want you now to tell your mind, focus on the sounds inside. What do you hear? The hum of the refrigerator, the fan. What? Okay, good. All right. And when you can't hear it anymore, raise your hand. All right. Now I'm going to ring it one more time. Now I want you to follow the sounds inside of you. The sound of your breath, breathing in, filling up. Breathing out, letting go. That's right. Perhaps you can also feel or sense your own heartbeat. Breathing in, filling up, breathing out, letting go. If we don't have a way to indoctrinate our children to their own inner life, we're missing out on a gigantic amount of potential the brain is ready to give us. We are only using 10% of the brain's potential. And unless you learn how to tap into your altered states, your state of deep rest, you will not be able to really turn the light on the 90% that's available to us.
I really like that.
Yeah, okay. Was it easy to use the bell exercise?
Yes.
That's two things. Sound healing is so powerful because it's a simple remedy for an immediate stress. When I ring a bell, and my mom used to use the bell a lot as a way to get our attention, because when you cut into the atmosphere with a sound that's not harmful, but actually is melodic or soothing, your brain immediately pays attention. It wants to go to the sound that is being generated. And when you learn how to utilize the sound healing in your own environment, again, I'm talking about going through a day, and this is one of the courses I have for parents. There are, points that I call portals of energy throughout a child's day that are really key for using these moments to introduce this kind of an activity that really does help to open their mind to the power within.
I'm so touched, moved, and inspired by what you do and how you help kids, not only kids, but, I think that parents forget sometimes that children are our greatest teachers. And we learn just as much from them as they do from us. So they're great mirrors.
Yeah, exactly. But I like to give, practical tools for parents so that there is easy application and It doesn't become a burden. You know what I mean? It's like once I give them the basics, it's so easy for them to implement because it makes sense after they get their little, lowdown on why I'm teaching them to do what it is that they can do. Even simply, a kid is unconsolable, for example, out of control, having a rant, rave, whatever. I say, if your child is young enough to pick him up and twirl around, it's like a pop bead, and it snaps apart what it is that the brain is fixated on, and the child will immediately get an effect of a calming just by changing kinesthetically what is happening and using the physical body, using the child's own body as the mechanism to unlink what was previously linked, and the weapon of destruction that couldn't get taken care of any other way.
I was thinking too about this idea of sound in the bell, and for adults, I was thinking about the alarm clock. Ever since I changed my alarm clock to birds chirping, it's much more pleasant to wake up in the morning. I don't start off in a panic.
That's sweet. I see, because the brain, it has associations. And when you learn how to work with your associations and you become more self-aware, you can actually calm yourself down by understanding how to set things up so that the brain makes no distinction between real or imagined information. That's why guided imagery is so powerful, because if you take yourself to a scary movie, what happens immediately is your hands start to perspire, your hair follicles go erect, your eyes dilate, your heart starts to race. All these things are happening, and you haven't left home. You're just watching a movie. Well, you can turn it around and turn the volume down by using imagery in a way where it's proactive in terms of health and benefiting your own physiology.
You bring up a really good point, and I was just thinking about this too. And video games, all those killing video games out there and things like that, or even music. There's like that rap. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I do like some rap music myself, but there's so much out there I can't listen to anymore because of the words. And it might have a great beat, but the words are so derogatory that it just affects me. And I can't, it's not supposed to be like that. So why would I put that into I always talk about feeding not just my mouth, but my soul, my brain. Yeah. What am I feeding all of me? And
exactly
do that. Yeah.
And everything is consciousness and energy. And so if you're consciously choosing what kind of energy goes into your beingness, that's a beautiful thing, Julianne. And I hope people are going to review this program, and what you're saying is so important to your health and well-being. And we're talking about own your wellness. That's one way to do it, for sure. Choose what it is that is not only consumed, but comes into you, into your consciousness and your energy field.
It makes a huge difference. It's fascinating to me too, because like I said, I worked in addiction recovery. And so all the clients used to watch Law and Order and, all these shows of like killing and, and now it makes sense to me why.
Have a separate playlist, your playlist that you make accessible, more accessible even, so that you can interrupt.
Exactly.
That's the key. That's why bells are so easy to use. When you hit into the atmosphere a new sound, the bird call, the bird whistle, sounds of even sounds of ocean and nature will help to immediately calm your physiology.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Well, we have about a minute and a half left. So I'm curious if there's any final thoughts that you'd love to share with the audience.
Well, I think we covered a lot of territory. Again, I hope that your guests will feel free to go to my website and grab the freebies. Yep, drroxannedaleo.com. And I just want to say, in the old days, parents were more embracing of their own wisdom. And I want to encourage parents today to realize you are your child's first teacher and you are the best person for giving them the reassurance, the security, and safety that they need in a world that's gone crazy with too much stimulation. And so when you want your kids to be calm, you become first and make it a habit of a beautiful take back the afternoon, as I'd say, as the sun is descending in the sky and the colors are changing and everything has become beautiful and lit by the sun. Just take that moment, look out the window with your children and watch and listen.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for spending this hour with us. You've given a lot of practical things that people can do, and also all the free gifts that you have available through your website. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very glad that we finally got to have this conversation.
Well, you're so welcome. It's been a joy to be with you, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much, Julianne.
Thank you, everyone. That is all the time that we have for today. We'll see you again next Thursday. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week.